The incident occurred on a Tuesday morning, just after the 9 o'clock rush in a downtown Austin Starbucks. A man was detained, threatened, and physically assaulted by a police officer. The man was Master Sergeant Elias Cole, a decorated operator within the U.S. Army's most elite and secretive Special Missions Unit, commonly known as Delta Force. The officer was Patrolman Kyle Rourke of the Austin Police Department, a 5-year veteran with a history of aggressive field interviews. The confrontation began over a misplaced wallet and a vague description, but it was fueled by Officer Rourke's immediate and unshakable assumption that the black man in gray sweatpants was a criminal. What followed was a stunning display of composure in the face of escalating hostility, a masterclass in how a person with hidden authority can dismantle an abuser piece by piece, culminating in a phone call that would cost the officer his career and the city a 6-figure penalty before the encounter was even over. The body camera footage, later released, would capture every damning second of the confrontation. It begins with the chime of the coffee shop door and the heavy, confident steps of Officer Rourke scanning the room. His eyes, cold and assessing, swept past a blonde woman typing on a laptop, a pair of college students quizzing each other with flashcards, and a man in a business suit talking quietly on his phone. They landed, and stayed, on Elias Cole. Elias was standing near the pickup counter, a receipt for a black Americano crumpled in his hand. He was in his mid-30s, with the dense, coiled physique of a man whose body was a finely tuned weapon. But in his worn gray sweatpants, a faded University of Texas t-shirt, and running shoes, he projected nothing more than the relaxed fatigue of someone who'd just finished a grueling morning workout. His stillness was what set him apart. While others fidgeted, he was a point of absolute calm in the caffeinated hum of the cafe. Officer Rourke approached him from the side, his hand resting casually on the butt of his holstered firearm. "I need to have a word with you," he said, his voice a low rumble that cut through the background chatter. Elias turned his head slowly, his eyes meeting the officer's. They were dark, intelligent, and held no trace of fear. "Is there a problem, officer?" he asked, his tone even and respectful. "We had a report of a theft. Wallet taken from a woman's purse about 10 minutes ago. The suspect was described as a male, athletic build, wearing sweatpants." Rourke's gaze drifted pointedly down Elias's frame and back up. "Sounds like you." The accusation hung in the air, thick and odious. The barista froze mid-pour. The business suit ended his call. Elias's expression didn't change. He had faced down men with machine guns in dusty foreign streets with less overt hostility. He knew this dance. He was the only black man in the cafe, and in Officer Rourke's eyes, that made him the only suspect. "There are 3 other men in here wearing athletic wear, officer," Elias stated, not as a challenge, but as a simple fact. "One in basketball shorts by the window, and 2 in track pants over there." He nodded subtly toward the students. "But you were the one lingering by the tables." It was a lie. Elias had walked directly from the door to the counter and had not moved since. He had been tracking his environment from the moment he entered, a habit seared into his neurology by years of operating in places where a moment's inattention meant death. He knew exactly where everyone was, what they were doing. He also knew arguing the point was useless. The officer's reality was already set in stone. "I was waiting for my coffee," Elias said, holding up the crumpled receipt. "I'm happy to cooperate, officer. I can show you my identification. I can empty my pockets. My gym bag is right here." He gestured to a small, nondescript black duffel on the floor by his feet. It contained a towel, a water bottle, and a change of clothes. Nothing more. But to Rourke, the bag was a lockbox of probable cause. "Oh, we'll get to the bag," Rourke sneered, a flicker of predatory triumph in his eyes. He was enjoying this. The power, the public stage, the target who seemed just compliant enough to make this easy, but just proud enough to make it satisfying. "First, I want you to place your hands on the counter." Slowly, the request was a clear escalation, turning a field interview into a detention. The murmuring in the cafe stopped. The sharp, distinct click of a phone camera being activated came from the table with the students. Elias felt a familiar, cold spike of adrenaline, but his training smothered it instantly. His heart rate remained a steady 60 beats per minute. He analyzed the officer's posture, the tension in his shoulders, the way his knuckles were white where they rested on his gun. Rourke was an amateur bully, puffed up by his uniform, high on a minor surge of authority. These were the most dangerous kind. Unpredictable, eager to prove themselves. Elias made a decision. He would comply, but only to the precise letter of the law. He would give the officer no legitimate reason to escalate, forcing him to expose his own prejudice with every illegitimate step he took. "Officer," Elias said, his voice dropping slightly, becoming more formal. "Am I being detained, or am I free to go?" This was the legal tripwire. Rourke's eyes narrowed. The question forced him to commit. "You are being detained pending an investigation," he snapped. Now, hands on the counter, Elias slowly placed his palms flat on the cool granite surface. The position was vulnerable, a sign of submission. But for Elias, it was also tactical. He could feel the vibrations in the counter, sense the barista shifting behind it. His hands were now anchored, ready to push off if needed. His body was a loaded spring. "What's your name?" Rourke demanded, pulling out a notepad. "Elias Cole." "And what do you do for a living, Elias?" "Besides lifting wallets from ladies." The insult was delivered with a smug grin. Elias ignored the bait. "I'm in the service," he said, keeping his answer brief. Rourke laughed, a short, ugly bark. "Service industry?" "Yeah, I'll bet." "What, you bus tables? Valet cars? Let me guess, you're an aspiring artist?" Each question dripped with condescension, painting a picture of a man Rourke had already judged and convicted. The witnesses shifted uncomfortably. The woman with the laptop closed it, her full attention now on the unfolding drama. Another phone was now up, recording from near the door. Rourke was performing for an audience, and it was making him reckless. "I serve in the United States Army," Elias clarified, his voice still perfectly level. The correction seemed to anger Rourke more than a denial would have. The idea that this man, in these clothes, could be a soldier and a calm, articulate one at that, didn't fit the officer's narrative. It was cognitive dissonance, and Rourke resolved it by deciding Elias was lying. "Oh, a soldier? Stolen valor is a federal offense, you know. We can add that to the list." He gestured toward Elias's duffel bag with his pen. "I'm going to search your bag now." "Officer, with all due respect, you do not have my consent to search my property," Elias stated clearly. "You don't have a warrant, and you do not have probable cause. You have a vague description that fits multiple people in this room and a refusal to verify my identity, which I have already offered to provide." Rourke's face flushed a deep, angry red. The public refusal, the calm citation of his rights, it was a direct challenge to his authority. The smirk vanished, replaced by a tight-lipped scowl. "That's it. You're obstructing my investigation. Stand up and turn around. Put your hands behind your back." He reached out and grabbed Elias's left arm, his fingers digging into the bicep. It was a monumental error. The moment the officer's hand closed on his arm, the atmosphere shifted. Elias didn't flinch, didn't resist, didn't pull away. Instead, a change came over him that was far more terrifying. The relaxed posture vanished, replaced by a stillness so absolute it was like watching a statue come to life. His entire body became a single, solid unit of bone and muscle. With a minute, almost imperceptible shift of his weight and a slight rotation of his shoulder, he didn't break the officer's grip. He simply rendered it ineffective. Rourke's fingers, which had been clamped on a human arm, suddenly found themselves holding air as Elias's arm moved in a way that anatomy shouldn't allow without a struggle. It was a technique taught in the most advanced close-quarters combat training in the world, designed to de-escalate a physical confrontation by demonstrating overwhelming capability without inflicting harm. The message was clear: you cannot control me. Elias's eyes, which had been calm, were now like polished obsidian. They locked onto Rourke's, and for the first time, the officer felt a genuine tremor of fear. "Do not," Elias said, his voice a flat, cold whisper that was more menacing than any shout. "Put your hands on me again." The threat was so palpable, so final, that Rourke took an involuntary step back. His authority had been not just challenged, but effortlessly neutralized. Humiliation burned in his gut. His training, his instincts, everything screamed at him to de-escalate, to call for a supervisor. But his pride, his anger, and the color of Elias's skin propelled him forward. He saw the phones, the watching eyes, and he made the second, career-ending mistake. He drew his taser. The distinct crackle of the device filled the now-silent Starbucks. The yellow and black weapon was pointed squarely at Elias's chest. On the ground. On your knees now. Rourke screamed, his voice cracking with a mixture of fury and panic. Last chance. The barista ducked behind the counter. The woman with the laptop gasped. But Elias didn't move. He slowly raised his hands to shoulder height, palms open, in a universal gesture of non-aggression. But he did not get on his knees. Kneeling was a position of surrender, and he was not surrendering. He was taking command. His mind was a cold, clear machine. He assessed the taser's range, the distance, the officer's unstable emotional state, the 2 probes, the 5-second cycle. He could disarm him in less than a second. He could disable him in 2. He could end the threat permanently in 3. But he was a master sergeant in the United States Army. He was a professional. He had other weapons at his disposal, weapons far more powerful than brute force. Officer Rourke, badge number 734, Elias said, his voice resonating with a new, chilling authority. The use of his name and badge number was a clear signal. This is now official. Everything you do is being recorded not just by cameras, but by me. You have committed assault and are now threatening deadly force without legal justification. You are creating a record of misconduct that will be reviewed by your superiors, by internal affairs, and potentially by a federal court. I am giving you one final opportunity to put away your weapon and call your supervisor to this scene. Rourke stared, bewildered. This wasn't the script. The cornered suspect wasn't supposed to lecture him on policy and law. He was supposed to beg, or cry, or fight. This calm, articulate defiance was infuriating. You think you're so smart. Rourke spat, his finger tightening on the taser's trigger. You think you can talk your way out of this? You're a thief, and you're resisting arrest. I am not a thief, Elias said, his voice unwavering. And I am not resisting. I am lawfully refusing to submit to an unconstitutional search and an unlawful arrest. And I am an active duty Tier 1 asset for the United States Army. By detaining me in this manner, you are actively interfering with the operational readiness of a unit vital to national security. The phrase, Tier 1 asset, hung in the air. To most, it was meaningless jargon. But in certain circles, it was a phrase that stopped hearts. Rourke, however, was not in those circles. He just heard arrogance and what sounded like nonsense from a movie. Tier 1? What? You think you're in a video game, he scoffed, his confidence returning. This was just a new, more ridiculous lie. I've heard it all. Sovereign citizen, CIA, you name it. Get on the ground, or I swear to God, I will light you up. Elias held the officer's gaze. I am going to reach into my back pocket, very slowly, and retrieve my identification, he announced, narrating his actions for the cameras and for the record. Then I am going to make a phone call that you will regret for the rest of your professional life. He moved with deliberate, measured slowness, his left hand going to his back pocket. He pulled out a worn brown leather wallet. Rourke tensed, the taser humming. Elias didn't open it to a driver's license. He flipped it open to a single, laminated card. It wasn't the standard green and white common access card most soldiers carried. This one was stark white with a simple, block letter heading. United States Department of Defense. Below it was his photo, his name, Cole, Elias M., and a series of codes and symbols that meant nothing to Rourke. But what stood out was a single, holographic emblem. A bald eagle clutching a sword, superimposed over a triangle. It was the insignia of the Joint Special Operations Command, JSOC. The command that controlled Delta Force and SEAL Team 6. Rourke squinted, his brain struggling to process what he was seeing. It looked official. Too official. Before he could formulate a response, Elias had his phone in his other hand. His thumb moved with practiced speed across the screen, hitting a single preset contact. He put the phone on speaker. The line connected instantly, without a single ring. A clipped, no-nonsense male voice answered. Go for command. Elias's posture changed again. He straightened, his shoulders squaring as if reporting to a superior. His voice became formal military parlance. This is Sentinel Actual, he said, using his operational call sign. I have a Code 7 engagement with local law enforcement. Officer Kyle Rourke, badge 734, Austin Police Department. Situation involves unlawful detention and threat of force. Requesting immediate JAG and command liaison protocol. The voice on the phone responded without hesitation. Copy, Sentinel Actual. Stand by. Is the law enforcement officer present? and can he take instruction? Elias held the phone out toward the stunned officer. My commanding officer would like a word with you, he said, his expression unreadable. Rourke stared at the phone as if it were a snake. He hesitated, his mind a whirlwind of confusion and dawning horror. The jargon, the call sign, the instantaneous connection to command, the elaborate lie was suddenly feeling terrifyingly real. Take the phone, officer, Elias insisted, his voice hard as steel. Shakily, Rourke holstered his taser and took the phone. He held it to his ear, his face pale. This is Officer Rourke. The voice that came from the speaker was calm, but it carried the unmistakable weight of absolute command. It was a voice that sent men into battle and decided matters of life and death. Officer Rourke, this is Colonel James Matthews, commanding Fort Bragg's Special Mission Unit. You are speaking on a recorded line. Do you understand? Rourke swallowed hard. Fort Bragg, Special Mission Unit. The pieces were slotting together into a picture of his own professional ruin. Yes, sir, he stammered. You have currently detained Master Sergeant Elias Cole, one of my senior operators. Is that correct? Sir, I was responding to a report of a theft. I am not interested in your report, officer. The colonel cut in, his voice dropping a full octave, losing all its calm and gaining a serrated edge of fury. I am interested in the fact that you have, without cause, detained and assaulted a member of this command. Under the authority granted to me by the Department of Defense and Federal Statute 10 U.S. Code Section 2734, you are to release him. Immediately. That is not a request. That is a direct order from a superior authority in a matter concerning national security assets. Rourke was trembling now, the phone shaking in his hand. Sir, second, the colonel continued, steamrolling over him. Per the Service Members Civil Relief Act and specific DOD directives concerning the unlawful harassment of personnel under my command, this incident has triggered an automatic civil penalty. My Legal Affairs Office is, as we speak, transmitting a formal notice to your Chief of Police. The Austin Police Department is being fined $120,000, payable within 30 days, for your actions here today. This fine is non-negotiable. A collective gasp went through the Starbucks. A $120,000 fine? On the spot. It was unheard of. The student filming zoomed in on Rourke's face, which had drained of all color. He looked like he was going to be sick. Did you physically assault my operator, officer? The colonel demanded. Rourke couldn't speak. His silence was his answer. Did you threaten him with a weapon? Again, silence. I see. The colonel said, his voice turning to ice. A Judge Advocate General's liaison will be in contact with your department's Internal Affairs Division within the hour. We will be pursuing this to the fullest extent, both departmentally and personally against you, Officer Rourke. You are a disgrace to your uniform. Now, hand the phone back to my master sergeant. Rourke numbly extended the phone back to Elias, his arm moving like a marionette's. He couldn't meet Elias's eyes. He stared at the floor, at the scuffed toes of his boots, at the wreckage of his career. Elias took the phone. Command, Sentinel Actual back. Status, Master Sergeant. The colonel's voice asked, the calm returning. Situation is de-escalating, sir. The officer is compliant. Just then, as if on cue, a police sergeant, a man with gray temples and weary eyes, hustled through the door. Dispatch had clearly relayed the escalating situation. He took in the scene at a glance. His officer, pale and shaking. A large black man standing calmly with a phone to his ear, and at least 5 other phones pointed in their direction. It was a supervisor's nightmare. What the hell is going on here, Rourke? The sergeant demanded. Before Rourke could form a coherent sentence, Elias spoke to the colonel. Supervisor is on scene now. Sir, understood, the colonel replied. Inform him of the situation. The JAG will handle it from here. And Cole, get your coffee. You've earned it. The line clicked off. Elias lowered the phone and looked at the newly arrived sergeant. Sergeant, your officer, Patrolman Rourke, has committed assault against my person and unlawfully detained me after I identified myself as an active duty member of the U.S. military. My commanding officer has just informed him that your department is being fined for his conduct and that a formal complaint is being filed by the Department of Defense. The sergeant stared from Elias to his own officer, his face a mask of dawning comprehension and utter disbelief. He saw the SOC ID still in Elias's other hand. He saw the dead calm authority in Elias's eyes and the complete breakdown in Rourke's. He knew, with sickening certainty, that every word Elias said was true. He had a major incident on his hands, one that was already spiraling out of his control. The viral videos were the least of his worries. He was facing a jurisdictional and political firestorm with the most powerful military force on the planet. To make matters exquisitely worse, the front door chimed again. A woman in yoga pants rushed in, holding a brown leather wallet. "Oh my gosh, I am so sorry," she exclaimed to the barista. "I thought I left it on the table, but it was in my car the whole time. I'm so embarrassed. I hope I didn't cause any trouble." Every head turned to her, then to Officer Rourke. The final, perfect, humiliating nail in his professional coffin. His entire basis for the confrontation, the very premise of his aggression, had been a fiction. He hadn't been investigating a crime. He had been manufacturing one, driven by a prejudice so deep he couldn't see the truth even when it was standing right in front of him, calmly offering its ID. The sergeant closed his eyes for a brief moment, a wave of exhaustion and fury washing over him. He opened them and pointed a trembling finger at Rourke. "You, in my car. Now." Not another word. He then turned to Elias, his face a mixture of apology and damage control. "Sir, on behalf of the Austin Police Department, I am profoundly sorry. We will cooperate fully with your command." Elias simply nodded. He walked to the counter, where his Americano was waiting, a fresh one the barista had made while the chaos unfolded. He picked it up. The warmth spread through his hand, a small, grounding sensation in the aftermath of the storm. He took a sip. It was bitter, strong, and exactly what he needed. He looked at the shocked faces of the other customers, the phone still recording, and then at the defeated figure of Rourke being led away. He felt no triumph, only a deep, familiar weariness. He had won, but he shouldn't have had to fight. He had been forced to deploy the immense institutional power of the United States military just to survive a traffic stop in a coffee shop. He thought of all the others who looked like him, who wore sweatpants and t-shirts, who didn't have a colonel on speed dial or the training to dismantle a threat with a quiet word. What happened to them when they met an Officer Rourke? The videos went viral within hours. The story was picked up by local news, then national outlets. Delta Force operator versus racist cop became a trending topic. The Austin Police Department was inundated with calls. The chief issued a public apology, confirming that Officer Rourke had been suspended without pay pending an investigation he would not survive. They also confirmed the unprecedented $120,000 fine from the Department of Defense, which the city quietly paid. The money, at Elias's personal request to his command, was donated to a nonprofit that provides legal assistance to veterans who have been unjustly treated by the civilian justice system. A week later, Elias Cole was 1,000 miles away, his face streaked with camouflage paint, checking his gear in the belly of a C-17 transport plane. He was back in his world, a world of shadows and high stakes, surrounded by his brothers in arms. He was Sentinel Actual again, a ghost, an instrument of national policy. No one there mentioned the Starbucks incident. It was a minor distraction, a brief, ugly encounter with a world he tried to protect but rarely had to navigate so personally. But as the ramp of the plane began to rise, sealing him in the dim, red light of the cargo bay, he allowed himself a moment of reflection. The fight in that coffee shop had been a different kind of battle, with different rules, but the objective was the same: survival. He had survived, but the victory felt hollow, a temporary reprieve in a war that never seemed to end. The real-world implications were stark, a testament to a fractured system. Elias was safe because he was a secret weapon. The question that lingered in the public consciousness, long after the memes faded and the news cycle moved on, was a simple and damning one. Why should a man have to be a weapon just to be treated like a human being?